I am Dr. Nandita Kaushal, Senior Assistant Professor in the Department of Public Administration, University of Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh. I am going to present before you the module whose title is Levels of Public Policies Formation. Objectives. After going through this unit, you will be able to understand the role of Cabinet Secretariat, the role of Central Secretariat, the role of administrators in policy making, the role of Cabinet Secretariat. Cabinet Secretariat is responsible for secretarial assistance to the Cabinet, its committees and ad hoc groups of ministers, and for maintenance of records of their decisions and proceedings. The administrative head of Cabinet Secretariat is Cabinet Secretary, who is in charge with the responsibility of ensuring coordination at the administrative level. As an important body of the government, the Cabinet Secretariat has to play its creative, functional, informative and coordinative role in the functioning of the Cabinet. It helps in preparing the agenda for Cabinet meetings, takes minutes, circulates decisions and follows them up to see that action has been taken in the departments, and thus Cabinet Secretariat appears to be running the government in the actual sense. Cabinet Secretariat cannot be regarded as the equivalent of our Prime Minister's office. The Cabinet Secretariat, being a staff agency, serves as the Cabinet collectively and in any manner has never had an analytical capability. It is not seen as providing the Prime Minister with policy analysis comparable to that which goes on within our Minister's own department. In the recent years, the Prime Minister's Secretariat has become centralized owing to the formation of a large secretariat with many full-time advisors on various issues and a host of full-time service officers in charge of different subjects. The Cabinet Secretariat, originally conceived for securing coordination, should not itself become the coordinating agency. It should serve the Cabinet and its committees. Next, coming to the role of Cabinet Secretary. Cabinet Secretary is the administrative head of the Cabinet. When the Viceroy's Executive Council was renamed as the Cabinet on 5th September 1946 on the formation of the interim government, its secretary, Sir Eric Coates, became the Cabinet Secretary, who was later replaced by H.M. Patel, followed by N.R. Pillai. The Cabinet Secretary is generally the senior most civil servant of the Indian Administrative Service cadre, and such a status was recommended by Gopal Swami Iyengar in his report on reorganization of the machinery of government 1949 as follows. He should be an administrative officer of the highest rank, selected for the office for his special qualities of tact, energy, initiative and efficiency, and he should be entrusted as head of the Cabinet Secretariat with the positive function of securing coordination as well as timely and effective action by all departments of the Government of India in all matters in which the Cabinet as a whole or the Prime Minister is interested. He should be a person commanding the respect and confidence of all ranks of the permanent services. The primary function of the Cabinet Secretariat is to provide secretariat assistance to the Cabinet. He sits near the Prime Minister in the Cabinet meetings and briefs him personally. He transforms the actual proceedings of Cabinet in the form of Cabinet minutes, that is, he puts in what is better and relevant. Although he keeps an eye upon the smooth functioning of the working of the ministries and departments, he does not have a supervisory function over any one of them. The Cabinet Secretary is present at all the meetings of the Cabinet and its committees. Being the principal official of the Cabinet system, the Cabinet Secretary plays a critical role in the policy apparatus. Although it is observed that the Cabinet Secretary has not been allotted a clear enough role and a strong enough position in relation to policy making, he must be a sufficiently senior officer so as to command the confidence and respect of all the heads of the departments. The Cabinet Secretary must be recognized as having as politico-administrative role in the democratic process in India. Next, coming to the role of Central Secretariat. The Central Secretariat is an administrative organization to assist the government in discharge of its parliamentary responsibilities. It is a complex of departments and ministries whose administrative heads are known as secretaries and political heads are known as ministers. The secretary acts as the chief advisor to the minister. He assists the ministers in the formulation of public policies. As policies can be framed only on the basis of availability and adequacy of data, the Secretariat makes relevant information available to the minister, thus helping him to formulate policies. It frames legislations, rules and regulations. It exercises supervision and control over the execution of policies and programs by the executive departments. To facilitate policy making in critical areas, the central government set up some types of policy planning units in key departments and ministries. Generally, separate from budget formation, these units ideally provide the inputs for effective policy making among the various program elements of a department or ministry, and it relates different policy elements emanating from various parts of the department or the ministry so that it functions as one organization and moves in consistent direction. Advisory committees have been constituted and attached to the departments for advising the machinery of the central government at the national level. A considerable number of these standing committees formed for a specific purpose are composed either exclusively and oblique or predominantly of experts. Others are representative in essence and tend to reflect democratic principles in policy making. In discussing the role of the Secretariat department in the policy formation, it is important to underline the theory of political administrative relationship. According to democratic norms, a government should be political, not bureaucratic. Civil servants are employed in theory to serve political leaders by carrying out their decisions. Ministers decide on policies and their civil servants take the necessary executive actions to implement them. Whereas in practice, the civil servants exercise much more power in the formulation of public policies than the formal description of their responsibility suggests. Since public policy making has to rely more and more on technical advice of specialists and on the administrative experience of generalists, their advice is given more and more weight by the ministers. Indeed, the way in which senior civil servants collect the data necessary for policy decisions, analyze the problems involved and present the pros and cons of selected policy options, it shows that they have a considerable influence on the final policy decisions. Ministers often find it even more difficult to resist the choice of policy options pressed on them, if those are based on a better analysis of the needs of the future. The success and failure of most of the public policies adopted since India's independence may be seen to be related to the role of the administrators. Next, coming to the role of administrators in policy making. In the United Nations publication, it was stated that the senior administrator is responsible for formulating or advising in the formulation of policies designed to achieve development goals and mobilizing, organizing and managing the resources necessary to carry through these policies. In the policy making role, they have the following functions. First, the senior civil servants must clearly understand the nature and significance of the national goals or mega policies which the nation has set. Second, they should assist the policy makers to avoid ambiguities. They should advise them on the importance of adopting policies which can be implemented. The advice should be faithfully rendered before decision is arrived at on a policy matter, and it should consider the technical, economic, administrative and perhaps also the political feasibility of proposed policy. One of the reports of the United Nations publications states that the administrator's role in the policy making process under any system is to clarify the choices open to the politicians and to anticipate their consequences. Next, they should be to translate the general policy and its objectives into operational targets. This function should also include the analysis of probable costs and benefits of each way of achieving the operational targets. Such an analysis would facilitate the choice of policy alternatives. Next, as far as possible, they should adopt a rational approach and use modern management techniques. The advocates of policy sciences insist on the need in the modern world of putting public policies on rational basis. But it must be kept in mind that for certain policies, considerations of cost and benefit or the rational approach do not have any relevance. Next, finally, they should be able to pay special attention to the question of coordination of policies and policy instruments. They should analyze the policy in question in relation to other policies to see if any inconsistencies or vagueness exist and examine whether it complements or supplements other policies to produce better results. Next, coming to the role of National Development Council. The National Development Council was set up on 6th August 1952 below the Parliament. The National Development Council is the highest body responsible for policy matters in planning, the broad approach to a 5-year plan, the draft memorandum indicating its main features, the draft outline and final draft are all placed for discussion before the National Development Council. The National Development Council may approve the draft plan with or without amendments. In October 1967, on the recommendations of the First Administrative Reforms Commission, the National Development Council was reconstituted and its functions were redefined to include: first, prescription of guidelines for the formulation of national plans, including assessment of resources. Second, consideration of national plans as formulated by the Planning Commission. Third, consideration of important questions of social and economic policy affecting national development. Fourth, review of the working of plans from time to time and recommending such measures as may be necessary for achieving their aims and targets. The NDC is established for the purpose of strengthening and mobilizing the efforts and resources of the nation in support of 5-year plans, and more specifically to promote common economic policies in all vital areas and to ensure the balanced and rapid development of the country. The National Development Council comprises the following members: Prime Minister, who is the head or the chairperson of the National Development Council, Ministers of the Central Cabinet, Chief Ministers of all states and Chief Ministers and Administrators of all Union Territories, members of Niti Aayog. The Prime Minister is the chairperson of the Council and the Secretary to the Commission as its Secretary. The Commission furnishes the Council with the administrative information and other assistance. The Council generally meets twice a year. The Council in general never passes any resolutions formally. The approval of the draft plan by the National Development Council facilitates work on the preparation of the development plan for different sectors. It is thereafter presented in Parliament for consideration and comments. National Development Council provides the framework of cooperation and partnership of development programs. Because of the size of the body and busy schedule of its members, National Development Council has been appointing committees from time to time for a detailed examination of certain problems. The broad theoretical framework of the cabinet government in India is derived from the British model. The cabinet in India acts as a collective body where minister takes an integrated decision and acts as a decision-making body on broad policy outlines as well as specific matters related to it. All kinds of policies affecting the federation are analyzed in detail in the cabinet before they are presented to the Parliament for their approval. But the cabinet itself as a whole has to be persuaded of the correctness of most of the decisions. Although the Union Cabinet has a very important and challenging role to play in the policy decisions, it is not without shortcomings. The Cabinet makes use of Cabinet committees to facilitate decision making in the areas of political and economic significance. These committees change according to the requirements of the situation, and occasionally ad hoc committees are set up for a specific purpose. The Cabinet Secretary is present at all the meetings of the Cabinet and its committees. Being the principal official of the Cabinet system, the Cabinet Secretary plays a critical role in the policy apparatus. Although it is observed that the Cabinet Secretary has not been allotted a clear enough role and a strong enough position in relation to policy making, he must be a sufficiently senior officer so as to command the confidence and respect of all the heads of the departments.